Hi everyone, this is Jiggy, a portrait and wedding photographer from the Philippines, and welcome to the channel. So in this video, let's talk about lenses. So before anything else, if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, now is the perfect time to do so because I am still giving away a beautiful backdrop from Kate Backdrop. This is a 1.5 meter by 2 meter dual-sided non-reflective backdrop, and the best thing about this giveaway is that I will make the winner choose the specific design that they want. And to join is very simple. All you have to do is follow the mechanics in the description below. Now, how are we going to talk about lenses in today's video? Basically, I posted in my Instagram stories a question. Ask me anything about lenses, and I will be answering all those questions that were asked of me in my IG stories. Okay, so let's begin. Why is it I find 50mm lenses above more beautiful for portrait, but it makes my model fat? Just to paraphrase whatever he asked, I guess he's asking why whenever he uses a 50mm, he finds it beautiful, but it makes the models fat. Well, technically, that's what a 50mm will do if you decide to shoot tight. In other words, a rule of thumb is if you're gonna shoot tight, maybe here, this is what I consider tight, you should have at least an 85 to 135 to negate number 1 distortion or number 2 compression. What do I mean by that? Anything below 85, you will get distortion. In other words, for you to be able to get a portrait this tight, you will have to go in close. And when you go in close, that will distort the face. In other words, the nose will become bigger, the ears will become smaller, the face will become bigger generally. Therefore, that's why they look fat. Compression now brings in, let's say from a 135 above, is compressing the face. In other words, you will lose dimension on the face, it just becomes flatter. Okay, so next. Oh, who wants to join me?
Me.
Okay.
Yay!
So, my daughter here, Julian, decided that she wants to join the video. You want to read this?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, go.
You've used Canon before, right? What was the best one that you use?
Well, for Canon, to be honest, the best lenses that I've used was the 85, the 50, and the 135. Those three lenses were fantastic. The 50 1.2, the 85 1.2, and the 135 f2. But given a choice, I think I'd go for the 85 1.2. Okay, next.
Are prime lenses better?
Well, optically, prime lenses are better. Bokeh, yes, obviously they are also better. But it doesn't give you the flexibility of a zoom lens. So it really depends on what you're shooting. If you're shooting events, I would really suggest to have a zoom lens first before a prime lens. But if you're shooting portraits, a prime lens would be fantastic for you. Next.
Do you love shooting with the 24GM for wedding and portraits?
Okay, my other daughter is here too. This is Juana. Do I love shooting with the 24GM for weddings and portraits? Honestly, it's a beautiful lens. The 24GM is a beautiful lens, but it's not my focal length. Number one, for portraits, it's not really good for tight portraits nor half-body portraits. It would be good for a full-body shot. So I don't know if you would still consider that to be a portrait. Now, for events on a 24mm, I would rather, as I said earlier, I suggest that you actually start off with a zoom because it gives you more flexibility. And when they say, okay, you could use your feet to zoom in, but honestly, if you're going to be shooting with a 24, you're going to be prone to a lot of distortion. And I am a stickler for distortion. Okay, next, Julian.
2 questions, prime or zoom? And if you could only have one lens, what would it be?
Okay, so that's a very difficult question to answer, but to be honest, if it was just one lens, I'd always go for a zoom. Because, like, for example, one of my favorite go-to lenses is a 24 to 70 2.8 GM. That one will give you a 24, a 35, a 50. Basically, even if it's just a 2.8, not a 1.4, you're still going to get very good bokeh because bokeh is not only dependent on aperture, but also on focal length. So at 70mm 2.8, you are going to get a bit of separation already from the background. And it gives you so much flexibility. For me, a prime lens is fantastic, but they're specialized. So in the line of work that I do, especially with weddings, it would always be best for me to have something that's more flexible than a specialized lens. But again, I would always, well, for me, I could have a zoom and a prime. That would be the perfect combination. But if you're gonna ask me just for one lens, it's just gonna be the 24-70 2.8 all day long. Next.
What's a good first prime lens if you already have a versatile zoom lens?
Either of the two, 50mm or an 85. The 50mm will give you more versatility, but I personally like the 85 if I already have a zoom lens with me, let's say the 24-70. So the 24-70, then an 85, so that I don't have any overlapping focal lengths. Oh, what happened to Wana? Are you leaving? Are you hiding?
She's just there.
Come here, Wana.
She has
Okay.
a small camera USB.
I'm a baby tea.
Oh, do you wanna take some pictures also with that one?
But it's a toy.
It's a toy. All right. Okay.
One lens that will finish a wedding event. I'm always watching your videos.
Oh, thank you very much. One lens that will finish as an event. I may sound like a broken record. 24-70, whether it be the 2.8 or the f4, the 24-70, I can actually shoot a whole wedding with it.
I already have a 55mm 1.8 lens. What lens should I get next? I shoot weddings freelance.
24-70 2.8. I'm sorry, really, that for me is the best walk around overall lens that you can buy. The 24-70 or even the 24-70. 24-105.
How to sharp photo with a 73
A7 III 28-70. Okay, how to get sharp photos with an A7 III with a 28-70. Basically, that's a kit lens of the A7 III. To be honest, you'll be so surprised on how good that kit lens is. It is actually very sharp.
If you have already a 24-70mm and a 70-200mm lens, what would you advise to get next?
What do you think?
I don't know.
You, what do you think? What lens do you think?
Don't know.
You don't know also? Well, that is
Okay,
part of the
then.
trinity already, the 24-70 and the 70-200. So I would suggest maybe getting a 16-35 to complete that trinity. But if not, you can always get yourself a very good prime like a 50 or an 85.
Sigma 50mm 1.4 or Sony 55mm 1.8. Looking for an all-around prime lens.
Okay, so of course, obviously, I am a Sony brand ambassador, so I really am biased towards Sony. But even before I became a Sony brand ambassador, I was in love, or I am still in love with a 55mm 1.8 Zeiss. I love this particular lens so much because it's so small and it's fast, beautiful colors, beautiful contrast, and amazingly sharp lens. So I would say 55 1.8. Actually, that's still one of my carry lens. Every time I want to travel light, I just slap on a 55mm 1.8 to my camera, and that's it. Okay, next.
85mm Batis versus 85mm GM contrast. Sharpness, faster AF.
GM, definitely with a GM. I have both. I actually have the Batis and I have the G Master. The G Master is really in a different level by itself. The sharpness, the contrast, the focusing speed, everything. You really do get what you pay for with these lenses. Wanna read? Oh, you don't know how to read yet?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Only
Okay.
4.
So best lenses for portraits, 85mm. Any time of the day. 85mm. You could also get a 100mm, a 90, or a 135. Anything between that focal range. But I really do love the 85mm, specifically because I like the distance that I have with an 85mm on a full frame camera to my subject. In other words, I'm not too close to be intrusive, nor am I too far to be detached from my subject. So I really do like that focal length, the 85mm and sometimes my 90mm macro. Okay, there.
35mm 1.8 or 85mm 1.8. Which one is best for portraits for beginners?
You know, to be honest, I hope you guys can answer this in the comment section, right? I am actually confused when people ask me about portraits because I am...
He's a wedding photographer.
No, it's not that, Julian. I am a portrait photographer also. But my problem is, my definition of portraits is this. Taking pictures of a person. It's like a headshot. Now, I don't know if you're referring to portraits like a full body portrait or a half body portrait, but whenever I am asked about portrait photography, it is all about tight or mid. 35 millimeter will never cut it for portrait photography in my definition in terms of headshots, because as I said in the earlier part of this video, was the fact that with 35 millimeter lenses, you're gonna distort your face like crazy. So you're gonna make your hand so big or the nose so big that it will no longer be flattering to your subject. So that's why definitely for this question, it's a 85 millimeter 1.8.
Two photographers, two cameras each, best lens pairing for each photographer.
Okay, two photographers, two cameras each, so you're talking about 4 lenses. Now, the most important thing here to remember is that all those 4 lenses should never overlap or should never be the same. In other words, when I am shooting with my assistant photographer, I would normally have, let's say, a 16-35 and a 50 or an 85, any of those 3. So my 16-35 is usually for my wide angle shots. In other words, those are for my, what I call my money shots. Then I have my 50 millimeter or 85 millimeter, but normally I would go for a 50 whenever I'm doing couple portraits because I don't want it too tight. So if I'm shooting already with a 16-35 and a 50, my assistant photographer cannot use anything within that focal length. But normally he would have a 24-70 because of the flexibility. He could go from 24-70 and a 70-200. Now, why is that? Because the point of having another photographer there is for them to be able to get, number 1, a different angle, and number 2, a different looking shot. The problem is if you have the same focal length, basically if he just stays like a few feet away from you, you are technically going to be getting the same shot. So by having more than one focal length on each person that is not overlapping, you will not be getting the same shots. In other words, it will look like one person shot it from different angles with different focal lengths, and that's what we are looking for.
Two very important lenses need for wedding. One zoom and one prime lens.
Obviously, the zoom will be my 24-70 2.8 GM or even just a 24-70 f4. I am good with that. And the next lens that I would always have with me is my 85 millimeter. So basically, when I am shooting a wedding, I have 2 cameras. One has a 24-70, one has an 85. Then I have in my bag basically just a 16-35. That's it. So those are the 3 lenses that I use most of the time, but more often than not in my camera, I always just have my 24-70 and my 85 installed in it or mounted on it. Which lens is better for both street, fashion, and wedding photography? You see, these are the questions. That's why I wanted to make this video based on the questions that you would be giving to me. Because one thing that you guys have to really consider is you have to focus. You can't ask a question that encompasses what lens is best for both street, fashion, and weddings, because those are 3 very, very different genres. So in order for you to properly choose a right lens for you, make sure first that you know what you want to shoot. In other words, let's say when I started, I knew that I wanted to be a portrait photographer. So the lenses that I invested for are my portrait lenses. In other words, I had the 85, I had the 135. When I went into the weddings, that's when I invested in the 24-70. So with regards to street, let's say for example, for street photography, I would say maybe a 35 millimeter would be perfect. In fashion photography, well, I have really no experience with fashion photography, but I think a 24-70 would be good. Or maybe, again, a 35 millimeter prime would be good. And for wedding photography, I personally said I want a 24-70 and an 85. But if you really want to push this question, which lens is best for both street, fashion, and wedding, the one thing here could be the 35. But then that limits what you can do when it comes to fashion photography and for wedding photography. But I guess you could use it for all. But to be honest, 3 different genres, 3 different type of lenses for me. Let's end it with that question, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you have more questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and I'd gladly answer it there. And also, if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, again, this is the perfect time to do so that you get a chance to win that beautiful giveaway that we're giving this month. And if you want to see more of my videos or get involved in some videos like this, you could always follow me on Instagram. It's at Jiggy Alejandrino. Okay? Till the next video. Thank you, babies. Thank you, baby. Say bye-bye, Juana.
Bye-bye.
Okay.